This is the car and lineup that won the Rolex 24 at Daytona earlier this year, with Paul di Resta leading the charge. Look at this. This is for the lead and the win in LMP2. Paul di Resta, Dane Cameron, 0.6 of a second between them. That's it. And United Autosport, they win in LMP2.
Hello again, everyone. I'm Matt Yocum. Welcome to another edition of the IMSA Endurance Hour podcast. Now, across the IMSA paddock, there are so many cool folks with intriguing and interesting backstories. And we have another one today. Zak Brown, CEO of McLaren Racing and co-owner of the United Autosports LMP2 team, which is currently in a massive championship fight. And Zak, first, where in the world are you?
I'm in my home away from home, which is a hotel room in Monterey. I'm out here for the Monterey Historics, which always coincides with the Formula One shutdown. So it's the one event I know I'm definitely going to every year. I've been coming for, 20 plus years, and come out and bring some cool race cars and hang out with some cool racing people around an awesome track. And excited for a little bit of a vacation away from being at racetracks by going to another racetrack.
Well, Zak, we all live vicariously through you. All the pictures we see, all the video, whether it is Goodwood, you name it, if it's a historic event, you bring out the most incredible pieces of history. And then, like we're all little kids with our Matchbox cars, you get a chance to drive these iconic machines. So which ones did you bring to Monterey?
I've got a new one in Monterey, an IROC car that I got from Ray Evernham, which, I mean, who didn't grow up thinking IROC was the coolest thing? And my particular car started in 78, went through, I think, 80, 81. It won with Cale Yarborough at Riverside, which was my home track. Won again with Darrell Waltrip in 1980, but I just got one of Darrell Waltrip's championship Buick Regals, so I'm leaving it in Cale colors, but also has a cool story that when they went into Riverside, they put a bunch of actors in it, Paul Newman, Clint Eastwood. So I've got this really cool notepad of lap times, and Alan Jones was in it. So I'm going to be driving that one, which I'm quite excited about. First time I've ever raced it. My Jaguar XJR10 IMSA GTP car, the Castrol livery car, and then Porsche 935, which at its time was the first chassis to win both Daytona, Sebring, and the championship, the JLP 3. So some pretty iconic historic cars. I grew up watching racing, which is kind of how I go about collecting my cars, or the stuff that I used to have the die casts of, and now I've been fortunate enough to sprinkle a little bit of water on them, or money on top of them, I guess, and they've grown into the real thing.
Well, when you talk about that school bus yellow number 15, the IROC Camaro, now I helped document that, and twice I went down rabbit holes, and I came out going, oh my God. And I said to Ray, if there's one IROC car out of your collection that you never sell, it's the school bus 15, unless it's to somebody special, because, as you mentioned, Paul Newman, James Brolin, Clint Eastwood, Gene Hackman, and then you throw in Bob Bondurant and George Foreman. They took that car to Sonoma for a special play date. And then at one point, Jay Signori, who was the general manager of Penske Racing at the time and also co-owner of IROC, told me that somebody broke the transmission. So they went to work. The actors all jumped in a helicopter and they flew to Sausalito to have lunch. And then when they got back and they landed, they brought McDonald's for all the crew guys that had stayed to work on it. So cool moment, but it also got a chance to show a different side of so many accomplished actors who had a passion for auto racing.
It was funny. I that book that I know you fortunately you and Ray found, or I wouldn't say put together because it was already put together. I took it in to show my current race drivers, and I was with Andrea Stella, our team principal, and everybody knows how much I love historic cars, and they don't know who Paul Newman is or Cale Yarborough. So I show them this book. I'm like, guys, this is how it used to be done. And they opened the book and they, by accident, kind of tore a page, because it was in that leaflet. Didn't tear the page itself, but just out a little bit. And it was the first time I've seen Andrea jump towards the drivers because he understood what they were touching, which was like this Bible of racing. And they didn't, they're just turning pages. And he jumped in. He was like, that was really dangerous. Zach might kill you if you tear that book. But it was, just flipping through it. the lap times, the notes, the drivers, the actors. It was a really cool piece of history.
And then one night it was like 9:30 at night. And again, I just do a deep dive, random searches, and I came across the newspaper article from Sonoma by the local writer. And it actually had a couple pictures to back up, which I sent to you, of Newman was sitting in the car, James Brolin was in the car. And it's just incredible when you are able to find pieces like that that you think are lost forever to history because you're so passionate about history that adds to even the coolness factor to a whole nother level.
Oh, totally. I think, I'm not alone in my fandom for racing and the history of it. And, now everything is, digitized and automated. So to get the handwritten notes, I mean, you just flip through the book and it's just the history is awesome. And to me, every time I get a car for my collection, it's all about the history, the drivers, the races, the racing series. And then the more I can collect around the books, the race suits, the cars, the trophies is really cool, and love to put them on display because I know for so many people it has the same impact it has for me, which is I see something and it just brings back great memories. I'm sure that's how our kids of today will feel when they look back on Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton, but it does feel a little bit different because everything's so automated and digitized now. Those kind of handwritten notes, that old school way of racing, will never be repeated again. So I think we need to keep it alive.
And I love your philosophy of being a custodian, trying to preserve different pieces. It's just like the Darrell Waltrip car you mentioned. And I happened to call a friend of mine who was one of the co-crew chiefs at the time, and he says, "Yeah, I remember the car." He said, "Do you want the setup sheet for it?" I'm like, "Absolutely." So he dug it out of
Yeah.
his toolbox, and for a couple different races, he sent it to me and I sent it to you of what they ran for springs, sway bar, everything like that. And it's so amazing that you've got people that keep stuff like that. So what number are you up to as far as your car collection?
Ooh, I'm knocking on the door of 50 now. So it's a big garage, but I just do it out of passion. I mean, on the flip side, they are good investments, but that's not my agenda at all. But because I know they're good investments, it allows me to go very long in cars and maybe be a little bit more addicted than I should to cars. The Darrell Wall trip, I grew up. My earliest memories, my first race ever was the 1981 Long Beach Grand Prix. But then once that kind of set me in motion on, oh, I love this racing stuff. I used to go with my family, specifically my father and brother, to Riverside International Raceway, and that's where I uh, saw Darrell Waltrip in the Mountain Dew cars and Bobby Allison in the Gatorade. And those are my earliest memories. I'm 10, 11, 12 years old. And so to be able to kind of have a Darrell Waltrip car, I mean, he was a total hero of mine, still is. Dale Earnhardt, I've got one of his Wrangler cars. So the collection's quite eclectic. It's everything from Dale Earnhardt and Darrell Waltrip to, you know, Daniel Ricciardo's 2021 Monza winners. That was my first win in Formula One. So it's quite a diverse collection, but the common thread is my passion for motorsports and the memories that each one of those cars have given me.
What's the one car you would never part with?
Well, that would have to be my 1991 Ayrton Senna Monaco winner that he won the championship in, because McLaren's always been my favorite team. Senna's always been my favorite driver. Monaco's the, kind of the pinnacle, as is of course Le Mans, Daytona, and the Indy 500. But from Formula One, even though I love all forms of motorsport, Formula One's kind of the pinnacle, if you'd like, at least in maybe not in some people's view, but in mine growing up. So that just kind of ticked every single box. The only unfortunate thing is I don't fit in it, because that was the peak of these cars being miniature. So Oscar and I went out and had a play date in Paul Ricard a couple weeks ago, and took out my Alan Jones Williams FW07 B,
Nice.
which we both drove. My Alonso 2007 MP422 that he won Monaco in. We both drove that, and then I let him have a go in the Senna car because I like these cars to get exercised. All my cars are fully working, and so it's a good opportunity. And that was the one he was most uncomfortable initially with the Williams when he sat in it. He thought, man, this thing's kind of not very safe. It's quite compliant. Then the Alonso car he loved because he kind of feels like today's car, but lighter and more nimble. So he was actually, I'd love to race that thing today. I think the Senna car is the one that caught his attention the most because the power to weight ratio is kind of the same of today's car, but with a manual gearbox and heel and toe. So it's the probably the sharpest car to drive. So he had a blast, which was good to see how much he appreciated the history of the sport.
So you talk about just the history, and for you, it was Long Beach. For me, I remember my first recollection was Papaya Orange at Michigan International Speedway when they ran the Can-Am cars and then also the Trans Am cars. And my memory was, why are they going the wrong way? Because they were going traditional road course style clockwise, and the Indy car and stock cars would go counterclockwise. But I always remember the flash of orange. And so that always made me an early McLaren fan through all the different years. And then all of a sudden, fans got a big announcement that you're looking at returning McLaren to sports car racing with the WEC in 27. So tell me a little bit about that program. And I've got to tell you, I was just up at Road America for the Elkhart Lake Fandango that IMSA had up there. And that was a big topic of conversation because they're like, all right, we've got the Valkyrie here. Hopefully Zach will send the McLaren over here as well once they get it ironed out in WEC. So what are we looking at, do you think?
Yeah, I think that one, we went back to the Papaya because when I started at McLaren, that's all I heard from fans. Bring back Papaya, bring back Papaya. So we brought back Papaya because that's what our fans wanted. And I think we'd lost a little bit of our identity. I get why we were chrome, silver in the Mercedes days, but we were no longer Mercedes. So we kind of carried that over. And when I joined, we were kind of a chrome and a black and just wasn't kind of affiliated to anything. So brought back the Papaya. I remember someone saying to me, well, you only did that because that's what the fans want. I was like, is that like a trick question? That's exactly why we did it. That's what our fans want. We go racing for our fans and with our fans. We get so much energy out of the Papaya army. So that's why we went back to Papaya. And then I've always loved that McLaren's the only team to have won the Triple Crown, Indy 500, Monaco, and Le Mans. Those, in my mind, are the three biggest forms of motorsports that are relevant to McLaren. Right? We've never done NASCAR, so we don't have history there. So I felt like, well, let's kind of bring back the history, which is multiple forms of racing, Papaya, and the racing series that we've been in the past. Of course, we won Le Mans on our debut in what was it? I think '95, and so we were in formally. We announced our withdrawal just because when I look at our world, Formula One is, the center of our universe. IndyCar, we wanted to come back into because of the importance of North America to our fans, to our sponsors, and that no matter how big Formula One got in North America, I wanted to have another, slice to the cake of North America. So that's why we entered IndyCar. And then, of course, our sister company, our automotive company, we've been looking to go more closely aligned with them to go racing. A lot of our competitors are in sports car racing, the Ferraris, the Astons, etc. And so it was like, we need to get back into sports car racing. I think with the new rules, everyone has voted how much they like the new rules because look at the grid. It's gone from 6, 7 years ago, 2, 3 LMP1 cars at ridiculous budgets to now a full grid with kind of you name it, they're out there. So the timing was right for us to kind of bring back what I believe is kind of core to our brand, which is these three racing series. So we wanted to time, we've now exited Formula E, which we very much enjoyed, won a race, we were competitive. And then our automotive business got sold, so it's fully capitalized and has exciting times ahead. So it's just the timing and the stars all aligned because our IndyCar team's competitive. Clearly, our Formula One team's very competitive, and so it's not a one step at a time. Now we're going to get involved in WEC, because obviously the Le Mans makes up the Triple Crown, and there's nothing I'd love to do more than to then see some papaya in IMSA. But we need to make sure, kind of one step at a time. Let's get things settled in. Let's make sure we're competitive in WEC, and then definitely IMSA is very much on our radar. The earliest we would enter it is in 28, because I think it's a too tall of an order to launch a sports car program in two different racing series at the same time. I think it's very important we don't bite off more than we chew, because I would if I could, but I need to hold myself back from what I'd like to do than what makes sense. So hopefully IMSA's not too far away, because it's a wonderful series.
What's the buildup program wise when you're looking at the technology and trying to develop your own car? Because Genesis is right in the middle of doing that. Ford has announced a program as well. So the build up and the lead up time to when you actually enter. Any idea how many man hours would go in
Ooh,
to just
a
something like
lot.
that?
A lot. I mean, we announced it. We'd made the decision probably 3 months before that. We wanted to kind of be prepared for a good announcement. So, it's a 2-year buildup. I just got my first video of the engine on the dyno earlier this week. So, I mean, the engine's up and running. We've got a couple drivers signed, which we haven't announced yet. Still looking to kind of finish up our driver lineup. Cars under development. We've obviously shown a kind of a static model of it, so it'll be refined a little bit, but for the most part, now everyone knows what that looks like. And so super excited, and we'll be on track early next year with a major test and development program to be fully ready for 27. So it's a good 2-year project after you hit the go button.
And you've already got your fingers in the LMP2 arena with United Autosports. And Dan Goldberg has had a great season thus far, had the championship lead going into Elkhart Lake, had an issue during the race and just flip-flopped first and second in the championship standings. But he's been really impressive. The Daytona win, the Sebring win. When you're looking at that program, what impresses you the most? Because it seems to me with what Billy Glavin has done and the framework where you've got 5 or 6 full-time employees, and then you've got a crowd, almost like a production line, that fly in about a week and a half out to do all the final checklist on both cars. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, the team's done a great job. United Autosports is, my partner there, Richard Dean, I think is the only person I know that lives at a racetrack as much as me, if not even more. His race schedule is insane, and we love being in IMSA. I used to race in IMSA. Of course, I grew up watching IMSA. I'm so happy they brought the name back, and GTP and all that just brings back great memories. Jim France and his whole team. They love their sports car racing, and so Billy and team have done a great job. We've been very competitive. Unfortunate last race is going to knock us out of the championship lead, but we got more racing to go. And having won Daytona, extremely proud. We've now won Le Mans, we've won Daytona. All the biggie sports car races, so really cool. And hoping to get I'll be in Daytona next year. It usually conflicts with something else, but it's time for me to put sports car racing around what it used to conflict with. So I will be in Daytona next year for sure.
And you have such a great perspective of being able to, look through the forest, through the trees, onto the next forest. Well, it seems like racing a lot of ways is like life, where you go through different cycles. And the numbers for the television portion of the Rolex 24 were insane. But across the board, do you feel like auto racing is on a big upswing?
Well, I'm completely biased, but I mean, motor racing is just awesome. And I think what's happened is, first of all motorsports, from what I can see, is extremely healthy, which is a great place to be. I'm a view that if you're a racing fan, you might have your priorities of what you like, but you
Hmm.
kind of like all of racing. So I think the more successful racing is, it's good for everybody. And I think the series have gotten costs versus value under control. Things were spiraling out of control in WEC and what it costs you to an LMP1 versus the commercial returns. So a lot of people weren't racing there. Formula One, you were seeing, and I know it's a bit rich of me to say it now because we're having a pretty awesome season, but every race is a bit of a nail biter where, historically when there wasn't a cost cap. So I think what's happened is motorsports has kind of woken up of, hey, we don't need to just spend money. We can put on a great show if we have some cost controls. And if we have some cost controls in place, not only will that make the business of motorsports healthy, but it'll make the on-track competition that much healthier. And ultimately, we're all dependent upon our fans and we're dependent upon our sponsors. Though you're right, those are the two revenue generators, if you'd like, to allow us to go motor racing. And so you need to put on a good show and give great access so the fans come out and support. That's what they're doing. And then you need to be able to, bring on sponsors in a way that you can put together a budget. And if it costs you $10 to go racing, but you can only deliver $5 in value, you're never going to get that balance right. Now, what's happened is it's cost us $5 to go motor racing, but it's providing $10 in value. So look at all the sponsors and the health of the sport. So I think the industry has gotten the balance right between keeping teams in business, attracting great sponsors, and putting on a great show for the fan. And it's working, pretty much everywhere.
When you look at all the entertainment options that are out there between stick and ball, and you throw in soccer, and the list goes on, but when you look at auto racing, and I've heard Mr. France say it, I've heard Ed Bennett and John Doonan say it, you know, auto racing, about an event, making an experience, making a connection. If you've got new fans, they're free agent fans, and you're trying to make a connection with them, with a team, with a driver. So then they've got somebody to pull for, and then they're invested in their passion. And you see it, especially when you walk the grid during the grid walks at IMSA events, where so many more women, so many more kids than 5-10 years ago. And especially at the autograph sessions, which, again, economically, like you talked about, making it a great event economically for families, when that's part of the general admission ticket. And you get a chance to go and see Dan Goldberg, Paul DeResta, get autographs, free hero cards, you name it. And it's just, it snowballs of the event itself, where people are like, hey, you know what? This was awesome. Let's come back next year.
Totally agree. And I think you used a key word there, entertainment. Some people don't think sports entertainment. I don't get that at all. To me, entertainment is when you buy a ticket to watch something, whether it's a firework display, a circus, a baseball game, a soccer game, or a motor race. We are in the entertainment business. And, I think that's something that IMSA does really well, which is access for the fans. I remember the first racing driver I ever met at the Long Beach Grand Prix, Eddie Cheever. I still have the program. I remember the impression that made on me. So, everyone at McLaren, from myself to the drivers, there's no one that we're not stopping and taking a photo for or signing an autograph, because every impression counts, and kind of getting it right 95% of the time is unacceptable. You have to get it right 100% of the time. And NASCAR, led the way, didn't they? The drivers there actually kind of walk around. I think Richard Petty was probably the first, walked around with almost a Sharpie in his pocket, and knew that, hey, NASCAR, and I think NASCAR did a fantastic job of for almost kind of leading the way of embracing fans, giving fans access, and the drivers understood the power they had to impact the fan base. So I think we've all learned a lot from how great NASCAR has done on focusing on the fan.
So you grew up in LA. I did a year out in Granada Hills at Granada Hills High School, and the culture, you can't explain it to people what the car culture is like in SoCal. I even had auto shop at my school, which we never would have had on the East Coast, but that gives you an indication of just that passion. And I think if you fast forward to today, and what IMSA has done, and many others have done as well, is all right, we're going to be inclusive. How can we attract the young demo, the kids that maybe they don't want to be a driver, but they're super smart? They're locked in on all technology. They could be great engineers down the road. And so when you look at STEM programs, is that somewhere where you feel like that you're going to see more and more emphasis put on to try to attract the next, tire specialist? as well as the
100%.
PR or marketing folks.
100%. Youth is, the world's future. And women, women have really taken to motorsports unlike I've ever seen before. So, I think the stats something like 75% of new Formula One fans have come from Netflix or women and youth, and it's awesome. And so, we actually have a program at McLaren that we started a couple years ago called 60 Scholars, and that was a STEM-based program to expose young women 18 to 23. We that expanded to 24 to work with us and our partners to get exposed on STEM related initiatives around McLaren to start exposing people to opportunities inside McLaren and motorsport. So we spent a lot of time at universities, colleges. I think the youth is clearly everybody's future, but it's certainly the next audience in motor racing. They're coming up much more tech savvy today than they ever did before, right? You and I didn't grow up with the technologies that exist today, and that's a real strength of motorsports is it's a technology driven sport. So in a tech savvy world, I think it makes it very exciting because there's so many different ways to consume motor racing, unlike a lot of the other sports out there, of course, of which I'm a massive baseball fan. I got my California Angels shirt on, my second favorite team, Cardinals being the first. There's technology in play, right? You can see how technology is developing in these other stick and ball sports, but not to the same level as motor racing. So as people grow up more tech savvy, there's so many different ways to consume our sport, especially if you're into tech.
It's like my daughter is 15 and she's into content creating and she's forming her own company. She knows where she wants to go. She's got her path in her mind, mapped out. And you're seeing more and more kids like that that have an idea. Okay, this is where I want to go. So I'm going to go to this trade school or I'm going to go to this university and major in this program. But how important for kids today to reach out, be their own advocate, try to lock in internships, because I tell kids when I see them at the races, because we speak to so many high school kids that come to IMSA races as far as the STEM program goes. And I say, look, you have got to reach out, talk to different organizations, teams about internship possibilities, because once you make those connections, that really is what starts, your pathway to success and what could be your future career.
Yeah, 100%. I think part of our role is to just expose the sport, expose our teams, expose the racing series, and just show what the different opportunities are there, and let people gravitate to what gets them excited in the sport, and show them that there's a lot of different entry points, right? Engineers to designers to mechanics to drivers to PR and marketing. It's a big business motorsports, and so I think a lot of it is just showing opportunities. That's what I get a lot of notes from people. How do I get started? And the first thing I say is just get some experience. Figure out where you want to. If motorsports is where you want to be, just get some experience, build some relationships, and then just work hard, and things will kind of take care of themselves.
Dealing with different folks that have been associated with you either currently or through the past, because I worked for some of your folks at Just Marketing International as far as their customer suite hosting opportunities, and you'd see so many new race fans come to a race, but your employees, their team members, and they all seem like they're cut from the same cloth. Incredible work ethic, completely flatline. They don't get, wound up over things that might go wrong, but they just have a passion for the job and their personalities are all just very easygoing. And so when you're looking at, young people that are sending in resumes or trying to get an internship or a job, is there a certain formula that you go after that you'll know that they'll fit into the culture that you've created?
I think it kind of depends on the position, but I think some commonalities are you have to be extremely hardworking. We're working weekends, we're working different time zones, and everyone says they work hard, but a lot of people do, but I can tell you a lot of people don't. So, we're in such a competitive sport, you're going to get beaten if you're not keeping up. So, working hard, being able to handle uh, constructive feedback, criticism, whatever you want to call it, because you're trying to chase perfection but you never get it. But you need to be motivated to keep chasing it. But if you're not real with yourself, it's kind of like a driver, and probably comes back from my driving. When you do a debrief, you don't talk a lot about the corners that are really good. You talk about in great detail the corners that aren't good, and you talk about it in many different. You don't just say, "Well, turn one's no good." It's like, well, under braking or turn in or get into the power or mid corner, whatever the case may be. So you have to be an individual that enjoys being very critical of yourself and using it as a way to constantly make incremental improvements. You need to be a good communicator, a good teammate. You have to be good at losing, because you lose more than you win, and you have to have losing as a motivator to try and do better next time. You can't be a quitter. You're gonna crash. These things happen, so you have to have the ability to kind of shake it off and get back in the car quickly, so to speak. Um, so I think those are, and then you're gonna have a very big thirst for competition. As I tell people in Formula One, even the worst team is a really good. Where the whole field's covered by a second. So the worst team is great, and that's what you're up against in motorsport. So it needs to be, forget about what you were trained on or what school you went to, or any, like, if you don't have those kind of personal attributes, you're going to get beat in motorsports. So that's what I look for more than anything in someone's personality and attention to detail. This might be a small thing. I've been called a lot of names. But when you spell my name wrong and you're looking for a job, it'd be amazing. It just tells me you're not paying attention to the details. So it's less about don't spell my name wrong. It just kind of says, in a business that's all about the finer details, if you can't get that right, what else are you going to not research? That tells me you kind of haven't researched yet. And so that's a very little early secret for those people that are applying for a job. You kind of lose me at the start if you get the name wrong.
Do you think it's really underrated, the importance of communication between team members, no matter what area of the team they're in, whether they're in the marketing department or they're in the competition side, that quite often, and I go back to watching the 3430 with Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway, and the last scene is the two of them overlooking Southern California, the sun is setting, and one says to the other, if we had just talked out our issues, no telling how many championships we could have won.
Communication is critical. Timely communication and clear and concise, precise communication. So I hate things like ASAP. When's ASAP? I don't have ASAP in my calendar. I have Monday at 3 o'clock. I've got Wednesday at 2 o'clock. ASAP. So communication's critical, because and if ASAP means now, then just say now, because I understand what now means. So communication's critical, but then precise communication. Next week, was that Monday? Is that Wednesday? Is that Friday? So communication's critical, and precise, timely communication is critical.
You come across so many different people that could be mentors. And I recall when I was a little kid, I was 6 or 7 at MIS, and Roger Penske goes, "Hey, come here, I want to show you something." We walked back into the bathroom, go, "See the bar of soap? You take the soap and you rinse it back underneath the water faucet. So that way the soap bar looks exactly clean when you put it back in the dish." And just little things like that you pick up from a mentor that lasts you your whole life. What are some of the big people that you think stand out that have either been mentors to you or mentors to others that have been so impactful?
Well, Roger Penske would be right at the top of the list. Maybe a little bit less of a mentor, because a mentor is someone you lean into, but my admiration for Roger, and I would call him more of a role model for me than a mentor, right? Because a mentor is someone that's mentoring you, and I've certainly called him for advice. He's given me some awesome insight, but I'd say he was more of a role model for me. Mentors are obviously someone that is close to you and has mentored you. My chairman, Paul Walsh, has been a mentor for 20 years. I actually have an advisory board. We call it an advisory team because it's kind of the mindset of 25 individuals that are the who's who of CEO, CMO, CFO from the world's business leaders. They've mentored me in business, sharing their experiences. So I'm a massive fan of mentors. Another racing mentor for me is my best buddy, Richard Dean, who kind of took me under his wing when I moved to England in late 91, 92, and he kind of showed me how motorsports work. So he's been a big mentor of mine. So I've had everything from role models to mentors, and then I've also seen a lot of stuff over the years of people that have given me a good education on what not to do. And I'm not sure that was their intention, but I've seen some stuff where, oh, that's not how I'd operate. So I think you have to be a thirst for information. It's almost like being a driver. You want as much data as you can get. And so I see mentors and role models, the good ones and the bad ones, all as data points to help grow and understand how you want to operate yourself.
We had Philip Eng on the show recently, and he fresh off his win at Road America for BMW. And he talked about how racing and his connection to it began. They were just watching television, and there was kart racing in Austria on television. And he's like, wow, I'd like to give that a shot. And then I go back to, it's almost like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon when you see different things that happen for people. And do you think you would be here today if you and your buddy hadn't signed up to go on the Wheel of Fortune?
Definitely not. I think I've probably got 100 different instances where this wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have been, fortunately, where I've landed today. And some of that's by design, some of that's luck, right? Wheel of Fortune was luck, but hard work also kind of creates some luck. So I think the world goes round and round, and it's kind of who you know, and luck, and passion, and hard work, and yeah, for sure, I've got a lot of instances along the way. I say if this didn't happen, or this person didn't help me, or I didn't learn this thing, I wouldn't have ended up in the very exciting and privileged role I'm in today.
When I was at Granada Hills, and I had teachers like, well, we had Valerie Bertinelli here a few years ago, and we had this actress or this actor. And one of my classmates was in Towering Inferno, and it can go on because it's so amazing for people that live outside of California, just how many people and how close you are, no matter where you are, to the entertainment industry. And so for you and your friend to sign up to go on Wheel of Fortune. So what did you win as far as what was the winning answer?
It was the Smurfs. That one I had figured out pretty early on. I was just hoping that the wheel was going to come to me. And then the second one I won was Wild Bill Hickok, who I had no idea who that was. And fortunately, the person before me, I don't think knew either, because it was left with three Ks, and she asked for a Y. So I don't know if that was Wild Bill Hickory, or I don't know what was going on. But even when it came to me, I was like, I have no idea what this is. And it shows letters that are still available. And if kind of you're guessing, you go with kind of the more popular letters. So I just spun and went, okay. And it came up. But even then, if you watch it closely, you have to be able to pronounce it correctly. So I had, the Wild Bill was no problem. Then I got to Hickok and was like, Hickok. I was terrified of pronouncing it wrong because I had no idea who it was. So that one was luck that I called K. The Smurfs was pure talent. I knew exactly what that was from the word go. And so it was a combination of the two, won a bunch of stuff, but it was the his and her watches that I went. And at a later date, at Mario Andretti's advice to get involved in karting, sold the watches, got my first cart, and the rest is history.
So you were what, 12, 13, 14 years old?
Yeah, 13.
And
13.
so you won watches, and so you pawned them?
Yeah, pawned them. Probably couldn't do it today 'cause I don't think a 14, 15-year-old can go into a pawn shop and walk out with a couple grand. But back then, I think it was like, hey, we want these watches at a deal. Who cares where this kid got them from? But they were acquired legitimately.
It's such a cool experience, Pat Sajak, Vanna White, and then to walk away with, again, another tool to use to further your racing passion. So what did you buy? What did you use the money for to help really kind of keep that dream alive?
I went to Jim Hall Kart Racing School in Oxnard, and I did the beginners class, then the advanced class, then did the racing school, and won all that, and then ultimately went to Pitts Performance and got an ENIC cart, and that was, such an awesome time. It's like I missed Little League baseball, and I missed karting because everything was so pure at that age, and you don't realize it at that age, right? The first thing you want to do is you want to get out of karting and get into a race car. But it was interesting. Senna, in his documentary, asked him what was his favorite racing and his biggest competitor, and it was Terry Fullerton back in the racing days. So I think we all, at the time, you've got so much ambition, you want to get out of what you're doing and go to the next level. And it's funny how it all comes full circle. That once you're kind of, near the top, it's like I want to go back and do what I did when I was a kid because I was just a kid then.
You won a number of races through the different ladders. You had a couple podiums in IMSA. Was it tough when you hung up the helmet, even though you get to go out and play now? Or were you basically ready for another challenge, which in many ways could have been your life calling because you've got such vision and you're such an organizer and you've got such great execution when you've got a game plan in racing and you can see the results year after year?
Yeah, when people started telling me to stop racing and get into the business, I didn't want to hear it then. I was still, in love with driving. I think I stayed a couple years too long, which actually helped because by the end, I wanted to stop. And I had a 2-year contract. And into my first year, I was like, I think I'm done. Actually, doing that second year, which I really didn't like, um, helped because it kind of took my love for driving away at that moment. It was like, I'm going to just concentrate on business. Then racing's come back full circle, and now I got the best of both worlds, which is I'm in the business of racing and get out and to play with my cars, and I feel like I'm driving better than ever because I've got nothing to prove. I'm not doing it for a living. But when I did quit, it was good that I stayed 1 year too long because that kind of made it easy for me not to look back.
When you look at what you tell young kids, what's some of the biggest advice? Because the advice that I've gotten when I was younger was don't think short term. Yes, you're in the moment, but think long term because you've got to think, 3, 5 years down the road where you want to be and envision yourself in that position. And that helps the road to get there because you're already mentally approaching things the way those folks are. Like when I was in TV, I wanted to get to pit lane. And so I looked at the path, how I needed to prepare, how I needed to improve myself. And so I kind of envisioned 5 years down the road where I wanted to be. Is that similar to what your approach is?
I've always been long term, and things come full circle. And so whether it's cutting a sponsorship deal, I've always left a dollar on the table because I wanted everyone to feel, good about the relationship. And so I've always thought long term. And same thing with relationships. It's amazing how many people helped me along the way when, I was kind of a nobody. Richard, starting with Richard Dean, and now it's come full circle. Unfortunately, for some of those that weren't so friendly to me in the early days, I remember them too. And they come back around and they want something. It's like, I remember how you were to me 10, 15 years ago. So don't ask me for any favors because you didn't do any for me at the time. So relationships and thinking long term is absolutely how I roll, and that's how I roll to this day. I've never changed from that.
I love when they were shooting the F1 movie at the Rolex 24, and I kept walking by what would be Brad Pitt's characters. It had a little bit of Steve McQueen feel to it, his van with the dirt bike on the back and everything else. But when you look at the first 20 minutes of the movie, and it's a great look into the IMSA culture, and then it transitions to the F1 culture. It's one of those, I think, generational movies where it can be 2 o'clock in the morning and you're going to turn on some network and it's going to be playing, like Groundhog Day, like Tommy Boy. And it's such a great story. And Hal Needham, who did Smoking the Bandit and Cannonball Run and Stroker Race, he told me no matter what, you've got to have a love story in the movie. And I felt like everything just felt right with that movie, but it was a great marketing tool to help get new fans. And like you mentioned, if you're a fan of one discipline, chances are you're going to be a fan of another one.
Yeah, I think it's just great for motor racing. Obviously, it's a Formula One movie, but I think it benefits everyone. Much like Top Gun did, everyone wanted to be a fighter pilot, and Tom Cruise, and everyone wants to be a racing driver, whether it's Formula One, NASCAR, IndyCar, World Rally. Pick a sport. I think people see motor racing as a cool thing, and Brad Pitt's a cool guy, and it was a great production. I thought it was awesome. We put Brad in our Formula One car. That guy can drive. He got a lot of mileage in the last couple of years driving that race car that was a Formula 2 car made into a Formula 1 car. It's high horsepower, and we put him in, and he was very serious about it and did a great job. And I think it's been his biggest movie to date. So it's been a box office hit for sure.
Is that because you look at Paul Newman and just the focus that in the preparation that goes into acting? Do you think that carries over, like for Brad and Paul Newman and others, that carries over and helps him in that arena?
I think so. I think they know how to kind of zone in and get into the character, if you'd like, right? And in motor racing, the character is total focus, pay attention to data, and I think they have a great ability to kind of switch off noise. And so I think, Paul Newman, I was a huge fan of. I always liked how he said he was a racer and a part-time actor. I mean, he was, was no one more passionate about driving and racing than Paul Newman. He did it forever. He was a very good racing driver. And coming back to where we started with the IROC car, that was one of the things that was appealing to me. It was Paul Newman that driven this race car.
I looked at your LMP2 car and there's a decal on both sides, and it's a baseball and your late brother's initials and the passion that both of you had for baseball. And is that sort of your release and relief from all the pressures that go on with your day job, that you can go to a ballpark? I saw you at the All-Star game and right there front row, and you get a chance just to sit back and just be Zach.
And baseball and ice hockey are the two sports I grew up playing and love, and got some great friends that are both in those leagues now and are retired. And that's definitely not that I want to ever get away from racing, but I do have other passions, and baseball and hockey are right at the top there. And I loved playing Little League, and I was on the ice when I was about 8 years old. Still play both in kind of fantasy baseball camp and ice hockey when I'm around. So that's definitely a bit of a release for me.
So the strategist right now would be saying, all right, 2 to go. So you're preparing for a big run. I know a lot of bragging rights. I'm not saying egos are on the line, but you've got Scott Pruitt, you've got Jeff Gordon, a ton of legendary drivers running IROC cars. So how much preparation have you put into it? And are you cramming anything else here before the big event this weekend?
Not enough preparation to beat those guys. I saw one article that was, hey, Zach's kind of the hometown favorite racing there every year. I was like, no. Scott Pruitt, Boris said, Jimmy Johnson. Hey, are you kidding me? These are the best racing drivers in the world. So I just hope I get to see them on the track, because that will be a lot of fun racing Danny Sullivan. I grew up watching Danny Sullivan race, but they are fierce competitors, and it'll be a lot of fun. I'm using the date of my car as an excuse, because I'm in one of the older cars compared to some of the others. So I'm actually kind of working more on my excuses than my driving.
I'll just tell you what the other ones have told me through the years. And I was talking to Dave Marcus about it a couple of years ago. It's, all you got to do is just take care of the brakes. Those cars would burn up brakes. You just take care of the brakes, you'll be good to go. So growing up in the car culture land of LA, where car was king, it's what everybody dreamed about when you turned 16, going down to DMV, getting your license. So what was Zak Brown's first road car when you turned 16 and got your license?
A 16-valve Volkswagen Jetta diesel, which was actually my father's car. So he gave that to me. So that was the first one.
Did you carry the go-kart parts in that, or the go-kart?
I did. I shoved it in the back. You had to use a bungee cord. You had to take the wheels off, and you couldn't shut the trunk. You kind of wedge it in there at an angle. You'd have to remove the rear axle, bungee cord it down. So that was my first go-kart trailer.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you what, have fun. It's going to be a great time wheeling out your iconic cars, especially that school bus 15. I mean, Paul Newman, you think about all the different people. In fact, that car was even used when Jackie Stewart and Paul Newman did a segment for the IROC race, where Paul did a lap around and he talked to Jackie on the radio. So 2 iconic people, once again, connected to a beautiful piece in your collection.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Well, Zach, thanks for stopping by the IMSA Endurance Hour podcast. And for more fantastic comment, we've got so many great friends across the paddock with podcasts and then also different documentaries. Just go to the YouTube page of IMSA. And there's our show. Don't forget to subscribe. Win the Weekend, Sights and Sounds of the Weekend, and so much more. So for everyone here at the IMSA Endurance Hour podcast, from our team, thanks to you for stopping by and riding along with us. We'll see you next time at the racetrack.